What makes a good neighborhood? When you're looking around and you're looking at houses and you think, well, this looks like a good neighborhood. I mean, basically, you're just looking at the lawns are mowed or the houses are kept up. Well, I'm going to give my insight of what I've seen over the years going through areas with buyers and a few stories, of course. Hi, I'm Michele Replogle, Coldwell Banker Realty. You know, my very first sale, I had buyers who wanted to buy a particular house, and it was because of the way the house was laid out. It had a couple bedrooms, but the way they were spaced out, it worked for their family because they had kind of younger children and older children. And then there was a unit to the back and a garage, and it just ticked all their boxes. But there was this neighbor next door, and he was mean, and he was a drinker, you know, the whole sit on the porch, throw the beer cans in the lawn kind of thing. And I remember pulling up and literally seeing the sneer on his face and his large vehicle in the driveway and going, oh my gosh, this is going to kill like literally my very first sale. This is like my first sale, or I think my second sale. And I was just like, oh, please. And sure enough, when we were looking at the property, he started making these kind of growling noises and banging around noises and everything. And I thought, oh, you know, this is going to kill my sale and my poor buyers. This is a terrible neighborhood for them. But, you know, looking around at the rest of the houses, they all seem pretty well kept up. It was a warmer area of town, so it was certainly an area I prefer because I like it warmer. And, you know, the house was actually really very nice. It was kept up very well by this owner. So we went and looked at other houses. They really liked that one. And they told me, we want to write an offer on it. And I was like, oh, but the neighbor. And we talked about the neighbor, you know, and we went back and forth on the neighbor. And they had a son. The son was very large, or they still have a son. And he was a big guy. He just said, we're not worried about it. We can handle it. And I was like, oh. And, you know, I was very new to real estate. This was, 18 years ago and 19 years ago. Oh, my gosh. It was a long time ago. And I was just so nervous and so worried. But they went ahead and bought that house. A lot of trials and tribulations in that sale, too, because they did not have as much to put down. And so the sale took a little bit longer. And it gave that guy a little bit more mileage, to kind of be mean the more we visited the house, because we were kind of going back and forth a lot in terms of condition and trying to make sure what they could afford to fix on the home because the seller wasn't going to do any work. Anyway, so they bought the house. And I just worried, and I would always check in with them every once in a while. And I called back one time, and Jose goes, no, I went and talked to the neighbor. He's fine. We have an understanding. And I went, what? And he's like, yeah, we have an understanding. We worked it out, and don't worry. And I was like, oh, okay. And then 2 months later, this guy moved out. Turns out he was the nephew of, an aunt who owned the home. And she just kind of wasn't aware that he was the neighborhood bully because other family members had moved out and left him there to be as mean as he wanted to be. And she didn't know. And the market was pretty hot then. I think, what was that, 2005? So she was just like, okay, I don't think she ended up selling it. She might have. But bottom line is she kicked him out, cleaned up the place. And all that worrying within 6 months was completely done. So what's my point? My point is, if you like the neighborhood and you've discovered the neighborhood is good, then one neighbor shouldn't keep you from buying. And I mean, honestly, if they're a true bully and they're, standing there with their AKs, of course, really, you would need to think of something different. But these people just kind of went in. Well, guess what? They still live there. They still like their house. They're still happy there. And they have discovered it is an amazing neighborhood. Skip forward to just one of my most recent sales. I told the buyer, I think this is a really good neighborhood, But I want to make sure that you are really good with the neighborhood and you find out for yourself. And basically, what that entails is you spending some time there and talking to the neighbors. And so she has a dog. So she walked the dog and she had a chance to meet a lot of the neighbors and found out they were very nice as she expected them to be. She got some referrals for some work that she wanted to do on her home. And it was what she expected. But my point is, one is you never know who really lives in the neighborhood really until you get in there. Because I myself, in my neighborhood, thought my neighborhood looked really good and really well kept, but I don't have the friendliest neighbors. We don't hang out and have block parties. We try, but they tend to be this half has a party and this half kind of hangs out, which is fine. It's totally great. I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying that you never really know till you move in. But there's a lot of ways to tell. And that is going and just meeting them. Like Jose, he just went straight out and talked to that guy. Or the other gal, she just kind of walked her dog and walked that neighborhood. And I always tell people, look, when I leave, the real estate agent, get out there and talk to those neighbors. I mean, if you don't feel like it or you don't like to talk to strangers, I'm not telling you to do that. But I'm telling you, if you want to make sure if you're buying into the right neighborhood, you got to get in the neighborhood. You can also check crime reports, but more than likely, anything that's going on that street, the neighbor is going to tell you. So that's my whole neighborhood spiel in a nutshell. Basically, get out there, talk to the neighbors. You can look around. There are neighborhoods that have a couple houses that my own included, that have an abandoned house that probably has a lot of pests hanging out there that come and visit all of our homes. But for the most part, that house isn't really harming my house. It just kind of sucks that it's there and not being attended to. We've had noisy neighbors, but, they always move out. And, I think we might have a curmudgeon or two. I might be one of them. But, that's not a true indication of a bad neighborhood. And I think for most part through Santa Cruz, we have great neighborhoods. I went to a neighborhood party a couple weeks ago before Halloween. It was really fun. All the neighbors knew each other and they were super friendly. And that block just seemed to gel, which is amazing. Now, you may not be able to tell it by maybe looking at crime reports or looking at any incident reports because of the high density of housing in that area. You might get the wrong impression of that area. But when I was there was a lot of people happy with these neighbors and happy to be in that area. So you never really know until you just kind of get in there. So I hope that makes it clear to you. But of course, if you have any questions on neighborhoods or certain areas, I can give you some feedback of some things that I know about certain areas and how they trend. So of course, give me a call, email me, text me, subscribe, like, share, and we'll talk soon.